Hey first grade friends, how are you doing today? I hope you're doing well. To start off our math lesson today, I wanted to show you this cookie. Now let's say you and a sibling had this cookie and you were told to split it. Oops. Which side of the cookie would you want? Probably this side. Why would you want this side of the cookie? I'm guessing it's because it's bigger. Well, this week in math, we're going to be kind of talking about how we look at objects and how we measure them. And when I looked at these two parts of the cookie, I knew that this part was bigger than this part. So obviously, as a kid, I would want the bigger part of the cookie, right? Well, this week we're going to be talking about how to measure things, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can measure things. Like if you actually think about a clock, which we talked about last week, we can measure time with that clock. If you think about going to the doctor's office and stepping on a scale, or maybe you have one even in your bathroom, that's a way to measure how heavy or the weight of something is. You can even measure the temperature outside. If you look at a thermometer, you're measuring what the air temperature is, and then you know how to dress appropriately for when you go outside. Well, this week we're actually going to be talking about how to measure length. And before we really get into that, we really kind of need to know what is length. Length is measuring how long an object is. Now that we understand that length is measuring how long something is, I want to introduce you to some vocabulary words that I know you've used before or that you've heard before, but you maybe had never thought about it measuring the length of something. So I'm going to show you these two words. I have short and I have long. When we're talking about measuring how long something is, it's a funny one to use that word. But when I think about the word short, I'm thinking of something that's probably little. It may be best to think about it going up and down, because sometimes when I think about how long something is, I think about it going up and down. So something that is short would be very little or low to the ground. Something that I might think is short is a first grader. A first grader is pretty short. The other vocabulary, that word that I want you to think about, is long. So if I think that a first grader is short, what would be an example of something that's long, meaning it's really far from the ground? You might say a teacher, right? So a teacher is long and a first grader is short. Well, today we're going to be talking about long specifically and how we can compare up to 3 objects using long, longer, and the last word is longest. So you notice that they all have the word long in them, but here I have the word ER, the letters ER, and here I have the letters EST. That's when I'm comparing things. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about with 3 objects that I already have at my home. And the first one is a whiteboard marker. The second one is a pen. And the last one is scissors. Now, if we're going to compare the lengths of objects, we have to make sure that when we are measuring them, they start at the same point. What I mean by that is if I want to measure which one is long and which one is longer, I can't measure them like this. They have to start at the same point. Here they're starting at the same point, and now I can see that the pen is longer than the marker. But I can also measure and compare 3 different objects. So again, starting at the same point, I'm going to put the scissors very carefully at the same point as the pen and the marker, and I can say, okay, the marker, the whiteboard marker is long, the pen is longer, but the scissors are longest. So I'm going to do some examples with you, showing you some pictures of animals or plants or even Easter eggs, and we're going to determine which ones are long, longer, and longest. That way, when you get ready to do your independent work on Seesaw, you know how to put things in order from long to longest. Okay, so here I have my measuring work mat and a Georgia peach. I have my 3 vocabulary words, long, longer, and longest. What I want to point out to you is that when we're working with the word long today, that doesn't necessarily mean the object has to be super tall in height, but we're just working on comparing. So if you look at my first objects, I have 3 eggs. So I'm looking for the one that is long. It has to be the smallest of those 3 vocabulary words. I noticed that this egg would be smallest. Then I'm comparing these two and notice that this one's the biggest. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put that on the longest category, which would mean this egg would come in the middle. So this one is long, this one is longer, meaning it's a little bit taller, and this one is the longest. Let's try another one together. I have 3 pictures of trees. In my mind, it always helps me figure out which one is long and which one is longest first. So I notice that this one is the smallest, so I would describe it as just long. This is my largest, so I would describe it as longest, which would mean that this one would be longer because it comes in the middle. So I have long, longer, and longest. Let's try one more with some pictures of some seahorses. Here's my 3 pictures. I have to decide what order they go in. Remember, it's always easiest to look for your long and your longest first. I can tell this one's the biggest, so I'll go ahead and put that at longest. I can tell this one is the smallest, so I'll put it at long, which means this comes right smack dab in the middle for long, longer, and longest. What order would you put these 3 flowers in? Long, longer, and longest. I hope that you put it in this order, where you see this one's the shortest, so that would be our long. This one's in the middle, so it would be longer, and here's our tallest one at longest. Let's try one more together. How would you put these in order from long to longest? I hope this is how you order them, where our smallest is our long, our middle is longer, and our tallest is longest. Today on Seesaw, that's going to be your job. You're going to be numbering things, 1 being the shortest or the long, 2 being in the middle, and 3 being the longest. Hope that makes sense. You got it, mathematicians.